Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Genevieve Noel and thank you for joining me today.
Well, the moment you felt you could start over new was the same that you realized the stories were true. You opened your eyes and the world you could see wasn't dim, it was brighter. You'd have to agree. Oh, now your fears are gone. They were buried with the dawn. And oh, now you feel alive for the very first time. Oh, now your fears are gone. They were buried with the dawn. And oh, now you feel alive for the first time. Not hold me yet, not hold me yet. No, you're not home yet. No, not home. But you finally found the way.
You know, I really don't think I've done an intro like that in a long time. But here we are, and today we are talking about budgeting. So as you guys all know, one of my goals for this year is to pay off my debt so that I can start saving for a house. And my husband and I have been making huge strides on this. It's been super awesome and really rewarding to finally feel like we're getting somewhere. And, you know, for the longest time we couldn't, and now we finally can. And after like genuinely living like paycheck to paycheck, not being able to pay off debt or anything like that, even though we didn't have any minimum payments to pay on most of it, it's really great to now be able to be like, yep, checking things off the list as we go. Now, yesterday, my husband and I realized that we haven't talked about our bills in a couple of weeks, so we're probably going to be sitting down and doing that tonight after we go shopping for some groceries because we need groceries. But I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about how we do our budgeting and stuff to pay off our bills, in case you're like, I am super struggling and I don't know where to start. That was really an issue for me because I was like, well, obviously I need to create a budget, but I have no idea how, because like if you think about everything that you spend like $1 on a day, or like all those things that are on your credit card or your debit card in the week, if you made a category for every one of those things in your budget, it would be outrageous. And then it's like, well, I don't need to spend money on those things, but where do I put them in my budget? How do I start? And everyone's like, oh, just total up your past 12 months of bills. And I'm like, but what about the random cash that I bought and like things like babysitting where it's like random income that I don't track? For me, that was an impossible suggestion. So what I did is I just gave myself some numbers. I kind of tried to look back a little bit to give myself some reference, but I just estimated. I was like, well, it takes me about $30 to fill up on a tank of gas. And my husband said we filled up once a week because at the time he was exclusively driving. I do some of the driving now, meaning we only have one car. So it's not both of our cars that I'm budgeting for. But, you know, if it was both of our cars and I'd take how many times we fill up a week, how much we pay every time we fill up, about like just an estimate, and then add that all together, and that's my gas budget. And then on food, okay, 1 month, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to buy groceries when I need groceries. And when you're buying every week, it might be easier, it might be harder for you. For me, I had to do every 2 weeks because it's just easier. That's how often we get paid, and I can stock up for 2 weeks, and then not feel like I have to go every single week and that we never have food. So every 2 weeks is kind of how I did it. And then what I just did is I went and I purchased and I bought like the general things. I subtracted anything like, oh, I bought toilet paper this week because I buy a big like in bulk toilet paper and I only buy it every like 6 months. Same thing with like paper towels. It's like every 6 months to a year. So I stock up on that stuff, don't really like buy it every week. So I subtracted out purchases like that, and I was like, you know, I might be over some weeks, under some weeks. This may have been a small week. So then I rounded up to like the nearest 100. So I think I spent like 180 and I rounded up to 200. So that was just kind of like in every 2 weeks. So then I did that for every 2 weeks. So that is what I did for my food in order to figure out my food budget. Then I just kind of asked my husband what the last 2 months of electricity and like our utilities, so electricity, and then we also pay for gas. So electricity and gas are in one, and then the internet is consistent because that's like every month. So that one's pretty easy because it's a consistent bill. What else for utilities? Electricity, gas. There's one other thing that I'm thinking of. Oh yeah, and then our water, trash, and like sewer is all put together and it's added into our rent every 3 months. So that's not something that I had to figure out. But I asked for the last 2 months of the electric and gas, and then I went with the higher of the two bills, and I made that our budget. And then obviously rent is consistent every month, so I put rent in there, and then I added up like what we pay for like music for Spotify and for TV for like TV services like Netflix and whatever, and then added that all together. Then I looked at any of the other like subscription services that we have. So I pay for a podcasting service, and that is like a consistent like subscription fee. I pay for advertising for one of my jobs. That's a consistent fee. All that kind of stuff does get put into our budget. And then I have like some more variables. So my dog gets a $50 budget every month because her food is a little less than $50, but I do want to have a little extra in there to buy her a toy. Her food bag lasts a little over a month, but I figure if we have extra and then something happens and we have a vet bill, I have extra. So what I do with her to like keep that in her fund is I take the cash out of the bank and put it in an envelope, and then I just let it build up, and then I bring the cash and go buy the food. And if I decide that for whatever reason, I am going to just buy it in my like grocery shopping trip, then I'll like put that amount into the bank, or I'll use it on something else so that it's like evenly traded out. But with my horse, obviously he has board that I have to pay monthly. So I pay his monthly board, and then a farrier is a little less than once a month. It's every 6 weeks. Usually that hits like every month, just at a different point in the month, and then you miss every like third month or something like that. So I just estimate that I'm going to pay the certain amount for the farrier every month, plus a tip I include in there. So things that you know that like you're going to tip on, add extra for the tip. So I have that included in there. The only thing I don't have set aside for my horse is vet bills. And so the hope is one day to either have like a vet for pets kind of like account where we put like $50 in it a month or something like that, so that when vet bills do come up, we handle them. But right now we just take them as we can, and we pull the money from wherever we need to. But in terms of budgeting, that's kind of how I do pets. Baby is currently in with our groceries because the only thing that I buy is diapers. I've bought one box of diapers and one box of wet wipes since he's been born. So in the past 6 months, that's all I've purchased. I know this is not the reality for everybody else. And if you are better at like, oh, he goes through a box of diapers a month, and the box of diapers costs X amount of dollars, and then, you know, I have to get wipes every like 6 months. So I divide that cost of wipes by like 3, and then I round it up to the nearest like $10 section. Cool. However, I am going to have to start adding in for food, but because we buy diapers and wipes so infrequently, just because we were gifted so many when he was like, before he was born, which was really, really nice, by the way. Anyway, because of that, I am able to not have it as like in our budget quite yet. So while he's still young, we can spend way more of our money like paying off bills, so we have extra money to readjust our budget later. However, we are going to probably be increasing our food budget like by $50 every 2 weeks for me to buy like fresh fruits and vegetables to make into baby food, because of all the things that have come out about these new baby foods and how the glass jars are like poisoning our children. I just don't feel comfortable doing jarred baby food, but I might resort to it. I'm not really sure. It's expensive. I know it's expensive, but he is going to be starting on some solid foods next month, and that's going to be a whole new thing. So I have been thinking about it, but I currently don't have it in my budget just because I don't spend much on him. I also will have to buy him some clothes for his next size because he doesn't have like any 9-month clothes. So I need to buy him a bunch of 9-month clothes That's going to be another expense that isn't really in my budget because I haven't had to purchase him any clothes. So it's just, we'll see how it goes. And I always wait to add those into the budget just because, like, with 6 months, he needed a few more summer outfits, but his grandma just bought him some because she was like, oh, I want to. So I was like, cool. So before I go into it, I kind of like wait until we get to that point and then kind of go from there. So things like cell phone insurance, minimum payments on like loans and stuff like that, those are all a specific dollar amount that you can easily put into your bills. Some people have like a car fund for like fixes, oil changes, maintenance, whatever. However, the way my husband and I roll, we just have like $1,000 in savings for like, oh, this car thing came up, so we're going to use this money. And then we'll replenish it, as we go along. Unless, of course, we have the money at the time. Then we just pay for it. It's all good. We put a little less towards our bills. But once our budget is created, then after that, it's like, okay, what things are going on this month? So instead of just having like a flat Christmas or birthday fund, which some people do, and that's great, I just plan my like budget out for what events I know are going to be happening the next month. So I have like a running list of like all the months from now until next April. And anything that I know, like Gabriel's first birthday, I have like an estimate of how much I think I want to spend on it set aside in my budget already. So I add all those things in. So this month I have a bunch of money set aside for birthdays. It's in my budget already. It had been planned forever. And then after that, then all the money that we have remaining, we put towards a bill of choice. We pick one bill at a time to pay off, and we pay off that bill. So right now we're working on Gregory's student loans, which we're actually pretty close to finishing off right now. I just gotta say I'm pretty excited about it. And we actually just have to check and talk about it. But that's the current thing that, okay, we have an extra $600. It's going here. And we paid off. It's pretty effective. That's what works for us. Might not work for you. That's okay. But what we do in terms of, great, you have the budget. Now what do? We have 3 separate accounts. 3 separate like checking accounts. We have a joint checking account, my checking account, and my husband's checking account. We also have a savings account at a different bank. That's actually really key for us because we are not as likely to spend the money because it's at a totally different bank. And it's not like, oh, we can use this as like a free loan because then you never pay it back. It's there for an emergency, and if something comes up and we have no way to pay, instead of going into credit card debt, we have $1,000 of emergency funds to put towards this car thing or whatever bill is come up that is an emergency. But with the 3 accounts, we have certain things that come out of the joint account, certain things that come out of my account, and certain things that come out of my husband's account. Most of our like utilities, rent, etc. come out of my husband's account. So because they're automatic payments, I plan those automatic payments to come out of his paycheck because his paycheck goes to his account. My paycheck is a physical check, so I can put it wherever I want. I put it into my account pretty typically because I write checks out of my bank account. And then we just add money to the joint account for the couple of things that come out of that. And then if there's anything that is an automatic payment from his account that I am paying for because, he doesn't make enough to cover it in one paycheck or whatever it is, or it's just planned that I'm paying for that, then I take that money, put it into our joint account, and he takes it to pay the bill. It works out really well. It's pretty convenient, and it helps to kind of keep bills separate. I also have, like I said, a running budget for every month until like April of next year. So what I do is as soon as the bill is paid and the money comes out of my account, I delete it off my list. Because it's running on my phone, really easy to keep track of, I just delete it. And as soon as I get money, a paycheck, I will sit down and pay my bills when I have the time that day. So that I'm not like, oh, I have $800 that I can go and like do whatever I want with. No, I don't. I have $30 of spending money. That's all I got. It's a lot. It's very strict, but it's a good way to keep yourself on track with what you're doing in terms of budgeting. And then what my husband and I do in order to keep like each other on the same page and not be stressed out about, oh, I don't know what's in your account because I can't have access to just your bank account because it's in your name and not mine. We sit down once a week on Saturdays. He has the same running tab on his computer And he has some other spots for like, it's like a spreadsheet with like miscellaneous incomes and all that kind of stuff. I don't have as many details. Essentially, when I see miscellaneous income come in, I go, do we have outstanding credit cards, stuff that we don't plan on paying off? Nope. Do we have a bill that we could be paying off? Nope. Or do I want something specific that I normally wouldn't have been able to buy, but I would really like? Yup, it goes to one of those last two spots. So I don't really track the miscellaneous income as much as he does, but he does track the miscellaneous income. And then we sit down and we go over, okay, what needs to get paid off for this month? And we call it good. And by doing it every week instead of like every other week, we have a week or two where we're like, okay, it's okay if we miss it. Or we have a week where we're like, yep, everything's good. No one really got paid. So do we have any questions or things that are coming up? That way we're never surprised by an expense, unless it really is, like I said, an emergency expense, because we've already talked about, oh, what about this? What about that? What about the other thing? So I hope that this video helped you guys. I would show you exactly like a physical description of like what we do, like a visual, but it has our actual numbers in it, and I have given you some of our numbers because I want you to run with some things, but it's just numbers that I'm not 100% cool like putting out there, and I know my husband isn't, so I would show you, but I'm not going to. My apologies. However, if you have questions about this or want help like with a template or something like that, feel free to ask on my Instagram, comment down below, whatever it is, DM me, get in touch, and I would love to help you out. Otherwise, we are making so much headway on this goal, and according to our plan right now, we will have everything paid off in December. I do periodically, like every couple of months, sit down and reevaluate like where we're at, because my husband did get a raise. He also, I also have like periodic things that like we pay off faster, or people give us gifts or whatever. So then I'll reevaluate like where we are. I also have a running tab of our bills. So like those minimum payment loans, etc. I have, okay, after we pay the payment that we're paying on it this month, this is where it'll be at, along with our budget. So that I can always see, okay, we should be paid off with this month. This loan is paid off. Then we check, make sure, and if there's extra money, you know, where do we put that, whatever. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is something that like I've been really struggling with, but ever since figuring out this new system that really works for me and my husband, I felt so much better. We've gotten so much farther on our goals. That took us like our previous 2 years of marriage, like we got nowhere. And now we're going to be done. And it's so great to know that we're getting somewhere where we want to be. And I really hope that you guys can find some people and some influencers who like acknowledge that it's really important to keep track of like your budget, your bills. You can't always buy things. As great as it is to have product reviews, if you don't need that product, it's kind of hard because you're like, yeah, that would be great, but I don't need it. That's where we are. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, don't forget to like this video and subscribe and hit the bell down below so you can get notifications for when more videos come out. We'll see you next time. Love, Genevieve.